alluded to in the past, we're going to be discussing the scientific method. The scientific method. So the scientific method is how we achieve our investigation of scientific phenomena. So we said that, in order for us to understand the laws and the truth involving any particular science, we said we have different types of sciences. What are the different types of sciences that we have? Life science, excellent. So what is the definition of a life science? What's the definition of a life science? What is the definition of a life science?
The knowledge of the branch of the science.
So the knowledge of the
Branch of the science.
Excellent. Is the studying. So when we define something, we don't use the same word. So we don't say it is the science is the studying of the sciences. We say the science is the investigation or the understanding of the knowledge involving the truth and the laws of a particular field that we are trying to investigate. Excellent. Very good job. What are the different kinds of scientists, or what are the different kinds of sciences that we alluded to? What's one branch of science?
Behavioral science.
Excellent, behavioral science. So let's begin with behavioral science. Who can define or give me an idea of what is behavioral science? Okay, so behavioral science is the study of
One's behavior.
Yeah, so remember, we cannot
use the same word.
yeah, but I know it's a little hard, but
One's motive and incentives.
yeah, so it's the study of the motives and incentives, penalties, and rewards that move you. You get up from the bed early in the morning to come up here. I guarantee you there was some reward, there was some incentive, and there was a penalty. The incentive was a short-term incentive. You're going to get attendance credit, you're going to get points, you're going to get reward for showing up and for your grade, and then you're going to become a nurse, and you're going to get a paycheck, and then you're going to fulfill your life calling. All of that is long-term, short-term reward. What about the penalty? You don't show up, no attendance, no points, you're going to get an F, then you're not going to get to be a nurse, you're not going to get paychecks, and you're not going to fulfill your purpose in life and life calling. So your behavior, you're moved to act a certain way. So if you're doing something good, there was some penalty or some type of negative thing that if you don't do it, you will feel. Or if you do something, if you do that, even if it's a bad thing, if you do it, there was some type of incentive. Cocaine addiction, that is negative, but they do get some sort of euphoria or some sort of, some particular type of happiness that comes with it, even though it's negative. So they're always, if you want to behave, if there is a behavior, there's always a reward and an incentive. That's one type, though. That's the behavioral science. What are other types of sciences that we talked about? So basic science and applied science, these are different classifications of all sciences. So behavioral science, there is applied behavioral science, and there is basic behavioral science. But we want to talk about the different sciences. So we have behavioral science and physical science is excellent. So what's a physical science? Physical science is the study of the knowledge of non-living things like fossil fuels, astronomy, archaeology, geography. So that is non-living. Very good. Physics and chemistry. What about the other type? That's the life sciences, what we're doing. So we're going to be studying the living things, the plants, the microorganisms, the animals, all the living things, the microorganisms and the macroorganisms. Very good. What about a hybrid? You know, is there a hybrid? Can you mix up sciences like biophysics? Oh, there's a lot of that. So there's always a form of hybridization. We mix up the sciences together. We study the non-living forces that affect the living systems, like biophysics. Physics, laws, they are non-living, but they govern and they force and they move the living systems. So there's biochemistry. So the biological chemical activities that happen that sustain life. And then we talked about applied versus basic science. What is the difference between applied and basic science?
Applied is the learning. Like when you learn something, like when you're trying to like learn something and figure something, and the applied is the action of it. Like
Very good. You're
Yeah.
almost there. Both of them are sciences, remember? So both of them are studying and knowledge. But the purpose is different. The objective is different. I am into the applied sciences. Obviously, I'm going to be learning. I am in the basic sciences. Obviously, I'm going to be learning. But why am I learning? Yes.
Because when you're in the apply, you're taking it a step further. You're creating stuff, you're building stuff with the knowledge you learn from basics. Like, for example, making a battery. You learn the basics and then you apply it to say, oh, no, we can't put this chemical with this chemical. So, yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. Good job. You even gave us a very nice example. So your classmate nicely said that, yes.
Oh, my God. Yeah. You like mine? 81? No, 81.
No problem. Okay, guys. So your classmate very nicely defined for us the differences and gave us an example that in applied sciences, we take on the knowledge that we got from our learning and our investigation and we apply it to make a battery. So we learn what are the chemicals, what are the oxidation and the reduction reactions, and what's the cathode, what's the anode, and then we bring them together to generate for us chemical energy in the form of a battery. Perfect. Your friend over here said one word that you could incorporate into your definition. What did you say?
for the basic.
For applied.
um,
Solve. Excellent. So your definition was perfect. It is in the applied sciences is when we apply the knowledge to solve some problem. COVID, we needed a medication. That's a solution. We solve the life problems with the basic knowledge that we have. Excellent. Perfect job. Okay, so science. This is life sciences, is the investigation of biological systems. Sometimes we investigate the social system in behavioral society. Okay, investigation of life sciences, investigation of physical sciences. The definition of what? Life sciences. Okay, who would like to take an opportunity to share with us their definition of life sciences?
The study of biology.
Okay, so life sciences is the study of biology. So biology is the study of the living thing. Excellent. So that would be a perfect answer on the exam. So the study of biology or the study of the living things. So biology is itself a word that needs to be broken down into simple terms. So that's why biology is on the dictionary. Biology is the study of the knowledge and the truth of the living systems.
You say that's the investigation of living things.
The what?
The investigation of living things.
Yeah, the investigation of the laws and the truth that are taking place in the living things. Okay, and then we said if we want to investigate in science, We begin number one with what? Without it, there is no science.
Observation.
With observation, excellent. We begin with an observation. What is the most important thing in an observation? If you didn't have that thing, you're never going to have an observation. What is it? The senses, excellent. So something you heard, that's an observation. You heard somebody screaming for help. Then you had a hypothesis. Oh my God, that person is in distress. They need the police. Then you made a hypothesis. Then you acted on it. You generated an output. The observation is an input that will stimulate you to integrate an output. So you see somebody laying dead. They didn't hear, you didn't hear nothing. Somebody's even cannot hear, but they see somebody laying down in the subway bleeding. They're gonna call 911 for the ambulance. They're gonna call somebody because they saw an observation. So based on the observation, then we take it a step further. What comes after the observation?
Question.
The testable question. Testable, falsifiable question. So now you ask yourself, does that person need ambulance? Does that person need help? My car is not starting up. Is it the battery that died, or is the transmission or the engine? Hopefully not. Or is it the gas tank is not full? Then you start making the hypothesis. The hypothesis is always if then. If my car is not starting up, then probably the battery is not working. If my car is not starting up, then probably the engine is not working. If the room is hot, probably the heater is not working. Then you turn on the heater doesn't turn on. So now you realize it's not the heater that is not working, there's no electricity. The heater is working, but there is no electricity. So then you found another hypothesis. Then you do your test. You test the battery. You test the you go and you test the air conditioning. So for example, in the brain, they realize that your brain is divided into boroughs, regions. We have Staten Island, we have Brooklyn, and we have Queens, and what's that one? The Bronx. I teach there too, I forgot. The Bronx. Then they realize that some regions are responsible, some region in your brain is responsible for walking. Some region in your brain is responsible for eating. Some region in your brain is responsible for sexual activity. So that's why when a patient get a stroke, you have 10 patients with stroke, they have different symptoms. One with a stroke, he cannot walk. Another one with a stroke cannot swallow. Another one with a stroke cannot have sexual stimulation. How is that? I thought stroke is the same thing because the stroke hit a different region. So how did they know that in this brain you have different regions responsible for regulating and integrating and processing all this stimulation? What they did was they brought an injection of glucose with radioactive material, meaning it will glow up. It will not hurt your body. It will just glow up when you're examining it on television. And they gave some volunteer. They put like a helmet that will record all the electrical activity in the brain and is like a visual camera of your brain. So when the brain consume a lot of glucose, like gas, the gas for the brain is glucose. I mean, your brain doesn't even have channels for glucose. Glucose just flows into your brain because it is for metabolism, for energy. So what they did was they brought somebody, showed them a picture of a sandwich, and then when they saw the sandwich, the glucose started to move to certain regions in the brain, and the light started to shine in that region. Then they found out it is this region that is responsible for appetite. This region is responsible for hunger stimulation. Then they brought the same person and showed them some sexual stimulating imaging. And then They saw the glucose move light up in some other region. So they know that is the nucleus that is responsible for sexual stimulation. Then they tell the person, please start walking. When they start walking, a different region light up. So now you see you're testing and you are looking for the result. You know, your brain is consuming glucose in the region where the activity is where there is a responsible activity. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Some confused faces? Are we all clear? Okay. Then we get the result, we record them down nicely, we organize them in tables, in axis, the x-axis, the y-axis. We don't say nothing else. We just put them there. That's the result. In the result, you don't describe nothing. You just put it there. In the discussion, that is where you sit down, you look at the result, say, oh, okay, the temperature went up when this happened, when this medication was taken, the blood pressure went down, when the plant was next to the sun, it started growing longer, when the subject in the research study was shown a photo of a sandwich, that particular part of the brain, radioactive, started to light up. Then you begin to discuss and interpret, and you say, then that means this, that means that. And then lastly, you conclude. You conclude that based on the result that we have, the rationale of our experiment, we believe that, you know, so and so and so. You put all of that in the conclusion, then you send it for peer review. Peer review or who? Peer review. What's peer review?
I think you said experts.
Expert, excellent. So these are your expert colleagues. They have your lab. You have your lab right here, and you are the principal investigator, and you have your fellow scientists working on your lab. Next door is another principal investigator, a scientist like you with their own lab. So you guys switch. You give each other your peer-reviewed articles, so you can sit together in a council and you investigate what's happening in your and then you investigate, you know, this entire design, the introduction. What's the introduction? The introduction is you give background. Always in the introduction, you give background. What is the experiment is all about? Why is it significant? Why are we doing this experiment to begin with? Why is it significant to do this particular experiment? You justify. I need funding for my grant for this particular experiment. Then we develop a question or a problem that can be solved through experimentation. We talked about that. A hypothesis, we said, is a guess. You make a guess. And a guess, as long as the guess is falsifiable, excellent, and can I test my car is not moving because they did black magic on it.
And can be proven wrong.
Can be proven wrong, that's falsifiable. But what's the other one? Scientifically proven. No, because we are just about to test it. So scientifically proven, I cannot prove it until the experiment is done. But I haven't yet done the experiment. I'm about to make an experiment. I'm just thinking. So before I even do the experiment, my hypothesis has to be 100% falsifiable, can be proven wrong, like your classmate nicely said, can be proven wrong, falsifiable. What's the other one? Testable. Excellent. You cannot say my car is not moving because the ghost and the black magic was, and you know, the god and you know all of that stuff. Maybe it's true. We're not saying it's not true. Maybe it is black magic. Maybe it's God doesn't want your car to start. But we cannot test that. So that is not scientific. Okay. Then there's the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis, the hypothesis says that there is no statistical significance between the two variables. So always there's an independent variable and a dependent variable. An independent variable is a variable that does not change. Like when you're testing the effect of the sunlight on the plant growth. Plant growth changes, but sunlight is the same. So that one is their independent variable. Independent variable always on the x-axis. Independent variable always on the x-axis. That's the x-axis. And this is the independent variable. And on the y-axis is always your dependent variable. And we say both of them are variables because they can increase in magnitude and they can change in direction. That's why they are variables. Okay. This is so important now. What's inductive and deductive reasoning? You know this one? We can now celebrate an excellent day one. Inductive reasoning versus deductive reasoning. What's that? What's inductive? What's deductive? Inductive is when you rely on an observation. So inductive reasoning is when you rely on observations to make explanation or hypothesis. So for example, your car is not starting up. You observe that. So you say because the battery is not working, because because the transmission is not working. That's inductive reasoning, because based on your observation, you were able to come up with an explanation or hypothesis. Deductive reasoning is the opposite. Deductive reasoning is when so in inductive, you begin from bottom to top. You begin from observation and then you make your conclusion. But in deductive, it's the opposite. You begin with something major. You begin with a major premise and you deduct down and you make your hypothesis and you make your explanation. So for example, I gave you the example of, you know how sometimes people make the rumors. If a male student and a female student, they are always on the library, you observe, you saw them in a library, you saw them in the cafeteria, you saw them coming to school together, you saw them all the time together. Then you make a hypothesis, they are husband and wife. They are in love. So you made that explanation based on what? On seeing them, on daily observations of you hearing them talking, being nice to one another, laughing with each other. So you gather a lot of observations that make you assume that hypothesis. Doesn't mean it's true, but at least you got to it based on a observation. That's an example of inductive reasoning, relying on observation. Deductive is when you begin with a general premise. Adam and Eve, husband and wife, male and female, and you assume they are married or they are, together. So based on the big premise of the enterprise, the institution of marriage, you were able to come down. Did that make sense?
Inductive one.
Okay.
No, I mean the deductive one.
Deductive is when you rely on a major principle to come up with a particular rationale. Okay, so let me show you something. Let me show you the example that was on the book. This is also another chance for us to see how we're gonna access this Hawkins that everybody's scared of. So this Hawkins, you see the first week. If you go to week 1, you see it says Hawks single sign-on. I also put for you Hawks login info. If you click on those, it will tell you. Click on Hawks single sign on. Okay. And then you see I have everything for you here. So lesson 1 is themes in biology. So if you go to learn here, no.
Which one did you want? Oh, themes in biology?
No. That one,
Or things like a biology?
think like a biologist. Where did it take me? It took me, oh no, it took me somewhere else.
When I go to think by, like a biologist,
Yeah, think like a biologist. That's where you need to go.
learn, practice, or certify.
You got to do all, but for now, let's go to learn. So start. Okay, that's very good. There we go. That's induction. How I don't want to look at this in here. I don't know how to get it out. Okay, so look here. In inductive reasoning, you see where my mouse is pointing? In inductive reasoning, you begin with observations and then you make a general principle. But in deduction, you begin with a general principle in order to make a specific prediction. So they are the opposite of each other. Induction, you begin with an observation to get a big principle, or to get a big explanation or a big hypothesis. But in deduction is the opposite. You begin with the principle and based on it you make a hypothesis. Let's look at the example. This is what we talked about, the radioactive sugar. They can inject the radioactive sugar. So here in inductive reasoning, you began with the observation. You observe that when the subject was looking at the photo or the video of the food, a particular region in the brain lit up. So you conclude that it is that region responsible for regulating appetite. Why? Because you observe it lit up. Does it make sense? So what is that? So if you look at my mouse, when an observation give you a principle, that's inductive. You observe something, then you base on it. You observe that region lit up. Then you say, that's the region for walking. Because when he was walking, that region lit up with glucose. Glucose was being consumed there. When he was eating, that region lit up. So that region is responsible for appetite. So based on what you saw, you made a principle. So that's inductive or deductive? Inductive. Now, deductive, the example the book gave, deductive reasoning or deduction is the type of logic primarily used in a hypothesis-based science. In deductive reasoning, the pattern of thinking moves in the opposite direction compared to inductive reasoning. So deductive reasoning uses general principles or laws, and then we deduce a conclusion. So for example, all mammals have hair. Whales are mammals, so mammals have hair. So here you began with a big premise, mammals have hair. Or mammals breastfeed, why they call them mammals? Mammals like mommy. They breastfeed milk to their babies. So mammals breastfeed the baby. Whales are mammals, so whales breastfeed their baby. So here you didn't observe anything. You did not observe no whale. Did you see the no whale? You didn't observe. But you made your knowledge based on other premises. That the whale is a mammal, and mammals breastfeed their children, so the whale breastfeeds his children.
So is that like an assumption, like just assuming things for deduction?
Both are assumptions for induction and deduction, but one is based on observation.
And the other one is based off like facts or something.
Yeah, based on fact or a premise. Okay, but they are the opposite. This one is really important. You need to know this one. Deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Deductive is when they say deduct meaning something big, you bring it small. So deductive is this: mammals breastfeed their babies. The whale is a mammal, so the whale breastfeed his children. Then inductive is based on an observation. That particular region in the brain lit up, that means a lot of glucose, because remember, glucose was mixed up with the radioactive shining material that will glow up in the camera. So that means it's got consumed a lot for metabolism. So that means that region is responsible for walking or eating or whatever. So if you base on observation, is that inductive or deductive?
Inductive.
Inductive. If you base not on observation, on a premise or a fact, what we inductive. Deductive. Deductive. Very good. Okay. We talked about that. Falsifiable, we talked about that. The independent variable, we talked about this. It could not be changed. But the dependent variable is the one that you are testing, you are examining. Then the control is something that you will not examine what you are testing. So for example, in the control group, the variable is kept constant so that it will not affect the outcome. So you want to test the effect of a particular medication on blood pressure. So you give the actual medication to the patients, and then you have a control group that you give them a pill full of water, so that you see now the effects of your medication. You don't give it to everybody. A control group does not get what you're testing. The control group will have everything. The subjects will have all the other variables except the variable you're testing. They will not get it. That's the control group. Okay, and in the metric system, we talked about the units. Why do we need units? Why are units important?
Oh, it's the systems,
Yes, to provide proper measurement for scientific method. Excellent. To provide proper measurements for scientific, to provide proper measurement for the scientific method. What else? Somebody else had a different definition. Remember when I did a cable? You could go to a village in Texas, you say how far is the next gas station, they say about 3 cables. Universal. It has to be something that all of us, when we say an hour, all of us have an idea of what that is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because we're not going in order. We just so we will do the microscope next week. We haven't done the microscope today. I'm going to extend. You have until 1 p.m. right now. So right now we're going to end this, and I'm going to allow you the time